Another selection of shorter Dragon Ball What If requests here. The first one comes from Chummy Lectern on what if Goku waited for Brief to install the stereo speakers. For the scenario, Goku considers the speakers could help him hear any relaying of information Bulma may send to her father. With this being a several-hour job, this has surprisingly dire consequences on Namek, where Gohan, Kuririn and Vegeta are all dealt with by Rikum long before Goku can arrive, and, losing all hope, the Saichoro's sorrow causes him to pass away even sooner than normally, and Nail succumbing to his injuries. By the time Goku is drawing close to Namek, Frieza has already destroyed it out of frustration after having sent the Ginyu Tokusentai to fulfill their conquest of Yardrat. Sensing Frieza's key nearby, Goku uses the screen of his ship to talk with Professor Brief on how to put in coordinates for Earth, when suspecting from the direction of Frieza's key that he is heading for it, arriving back there in 6 days and long before Frieza. Though confident in easily defeating Frieza with Kaioken times 10, Goku cannot take any chances when the only person who can defend Earth, and goes into the Room of Spirit and Time. He has little problem with the gravity, but the other factors that made for intense Shugyo when far stronger, such as the alternating climate, cause him to only last in there for 6 months, but still be beneficial enough that he maxes out his use of the Saiyan power to become as strong as he'd normally be after using the medical machine. When confronting Frieza, his rage of losing his loved ones and the guilt of not being in time cause him to become a Super Saiyan, but with the battle going a similar direction to in the main series, Frieza sets Earth on a 5-minute countdown, and even when more motivated to quickly defeat him, Goku has only enough time to save himself with the ship. It's when viewing Earth's destruction, though, that he sees the formation of a strange creature, Majin Boo, having been awoken from the explosion. Even though Boo would be nowhere near his full strength, it's still enough for Goku to know this is a being beyond his comprehension. Shin and Kibito then show up to tell him of the situation, and says there's no choice now but to try and have him prepare to face Boo by training with them on the Kaioshinkai. Unpredictable to any of them though, Goku gains the heart virus months later, with Shin having been given far more incentive to keep an eye on the mortal realm though. He thinks of a desperate plan in trying to get Cold to train under he and Kibito instead, succeeding by force. Though a genetic prodigy, it's not to the same extent as his son, and takes Cold years to become strong enough to unleash the Zetor Sword, while Babidi has found Boo and goes about destroying what he can. It isn't long after Cold unleashes it that the events with Rodai Kaioshin proceed, as Cold gets brought beyond his limits, and is able to swiftly dispose of Babidi's group. Though this leads to Cold being unopposed in conquering the universe, Shin acknowledges this order is still better than Boo's chaos, and doesn't interfere until his ancestor tells him about the Potara, and performs the ritual on him after this as their last hope against Cold. Kibito Shin and Cold have an intense battle, but the wider range of techniques eventually allows Kibito Shin to defeat Cold and save the universe. That is, unless taken into account Super or GT. Boo being destroyed would cause Moro's magic to be unsealed, as he rampages across the universe without anyone able to stop him, with even Granola's attempt to become the strongest in the universe being for naught against Moro's magic. For GT, the likes of Rild would prove too much for Kibito Shin, and lead to Baby's ruling over what small amount Boo had left for him. It's in this scenario that we see how, in line with being the character most in line with the Tao, in a story rooted in Taoist ideals, Goku's decision making and knowledge of what must be done is is ultimately rewarded by the plot, and how the contrary would prove deadly. The next request comes from Totally Human Productions on what if Boo couldn't absorb people, with South Kaioshin being absorbed by Boo being something Shin found inconceivable. South Kaioshin defeats Boo either alone or with the others coming to back him up, in assuring every atom of Boo is destroyed, and Bibidi's ambitions are foiled. Goku's one day amongst the living and the Tenkaichi Budokai go undisturbed, with Piccolo easily making his way to face Gohan in the quarterfinals. 18 taking a bribe to lose to Mr. Satan, who makes it to the semi-finals, when Goku defeating Vegeta by Rin Out prompts them to fly off for a no-holds-barred fight, which Goku soundly wins with the lack of the Majin power-up, keeping Goku a step ahead. It's widely debatable how the base Saiyans compare to Piccolo, but regardless of the stance, Gohan's rustiness causes Piccolo's superior skill to win via Rin Out, and become champion when exposing Mighty Mask's disguise. Things go peacefully for the rest of the day, with Goku teaching the kids the fusion dance before leaving. For Super, Tarbell is teleported to Earth with the Dragon Balls when Beerus asks about the Super Saiyan God, with Vegeta becoming it and Whis' student. Without Goku's Shunkan Ido though, Frieza wipes out the Dragon Team by the time Vegeta arrives, with his rage causing him to not mess about and destroy Frieza. No Goku means the Universe 6 tournament ends with Hit defeating Vegeta and Monaka, with Champa not being generous enough to restore Universe 7's new Earth. Zamasu never looks into the tournament without Zeno getting as interested in it, and ends up heeding Goasu's teachings. The Tournament of Power never occurs, nor does the events Frieza was directly linked to, or Moro escaping when Daikaioshin is still around with his God Key. The events of Super Hero occur, but with Gohan being far weaker when having no incentive to become stronger than his early Boo arc self, Orange Piccolo takes on both Gammas, and the group are helpless against Cell Max, even when Buruma convinces Whis to bring Vegeta. Whis decides to rewind time though, and little enough time has passed that Vegeta wipes out Magenta before he can unleash Cell Max. As with many other GT scenarios without the trip to space, or with a far weaker Dragon Team, Baby is unopposed in the Grand Superization plan, and eventually brings about the end of the universe through overusing the Dragon Balls. It's in this scenario that we see the importance of the Majin Boo arc, not only for future entries of the franchise, but the importance of Goku's return. And if wanting to see me go over why Goku's return and the climax of the Boo arc were perfect for the narrative, check out this video. The final one comes from the previous request too, asking what if Cell travelled back only a few years. In the scenario, Cell decides to examine and lean over the time machine, and decides to hide when Buruma investigates Trunks' last scream. She says to herself that perhaps she should go back in time fewer than 3 years to avoid 17 and 18, with Cell hearing enough to dispose of her, and set the time machine to go back to age 780, or 8 years from then, to have 4 years to hibernate, and still enough to spare in case 7 years left him just too late to absorb 17 and 18. When awakening in age 784, it's not too long after Trunks has gone to the past, and made a timeline divergence. Cell goes about draining humans while stalking Trunks, when knowing he will eventually lead Cell to 17 and 18. One such day occurs with Trunks managing to put up more of a fight than Cell would expect, before the twins take him on 2v1, at which point Cell drains Trunks and gains his perfect form after. He goes about slowly wiping out humanity before travelling across space, and trying to draw out more of his body's power, eventually becoming leader of Frieza's remnants out of habit, and wanting people to worship his perfection. As for what we normally call History 1, Trunks' absence gives Gero no opportunity to escape from Piccolo, and the Jinzor Ningen threat ends there. Vegeta has his rematch with Goku when the latter recovers, and manages to defeat him, but both fulfillment in that alone, and Piccolo stepping in, prevent it from becoming a fight to the death. Piccolo merges with Kami a few years later, when the latter's lifespan starts to wane. When Babidi shows up in Age 774, Dabra spits on Gohan rather than Piccolo, and the power of the Kin of the Makai has Goku immediately suggest using the Room of Spirit and Time with Vegeta. With this and their 7 years of earthly training, they manage to achieve Super Saiyan 2 and defeat Dabra. For Super, Beerus still asks about the Super Saiyan God. No Dragon Balls on Earth from casualties having not been great enough for Goku to seek out new Namek. Means Frieza isn't revived, and things go the same until Zamasu decides to enact the Zero Mortal Plan. But more on that soon. Gohan being vastly weaker here, and having never shown his worth in the Cell game, causes him to be no more than filler for the team along with Goten and Trunks. This severely weakens Universe 7 by enough that it would take a lot of effort to defeat Kefla without Gohan to counter her, and cause Jiren to still have more than enough in the end to become the decisive victor, reviving Gichin at the expense of the other universes. Back in what would be History 2 or the Trunks timeline, Babidi, having to move his sights beyond Earth, has him inevitably invade Cell's territory, with Cell having had enough time to find the same Room of Spirit and Time Frieza did, with his power and additional time to use the room having brought him to a level even far beyond Black Frieza. Dabra is quickly defeated, and Black still goes about the Zero Mortal Plan, until Cell trounces him. He doesn't finish him off immediately though, when curious on how he has Goku's body, at which point Zamasu shows up to elaborate, excited at being able to travel time and space, as well as Black having at least proven more worthwhile than the rest of this universe's fighters. Cell disposes of Black, and takes the time ring from his finger before telling Zamasu to do as he pleases, as Cell adventures across the multiverse. Zamasu being revealed, and Cell having been someone to pay attention to, causes Whis to wake Beerus up about this, with him quickly going to seal Zamasu away, before having Shin use the time ring for them to find Cell. They eventually do, with Cell proving more of a challenge to Beerus than expected, but the Hakaishin prevailing in the end, offering to tutor Cell as a worthy Hakaishin candidate. Cell accepts when thrilled at finding a strong rival, and knowing from his progress that what he has right now is just the stepping stone to true perfection. Cell would eventually become Beerus' successor, and would have his perfection show in his duty rather than through chaotic displays, with his authoritarian attitude providing enough stability that perhaps Universe 7's mortal rating may become just enough to avoid erasure. Ignoring Super, History 1 Cell eventually emerges, with far greater strength than normal, with the updates to the data on Goku, Vegeta and Piccolo, as well as integrating Dabra cells into his own. Achieving his perfect form soon after, he is able to easily defeat the Dragon Team, and then go in a similar direction to his History 2 self. For both of these timelines in the GT continuity, Cell would still become strong enough to deal with Dabra, and become far stronger when becoming aware of the increasing religion of Ludism, destroying Lud before it can achieve level 3, and proven to be Rild's superior. It's when Baby is unleashed though that the tables are turned, with Baby possessing Rild and managing to scratch Cell's cheek, entering the wound when Cell flares his ki to prepare Kamehameha. Though not the Saiyan host Baby desired, Cell suffices as the perfect one to quickly conquer the universe. It's within this scenario that we see not only how Cell's overconfidence prevented an easier path to perfection, but how their delusions of superiority being broken could have very beneficial results for it in the right scenario. Thank you for having watched through these 3 what ifs. Post any what if requests or those for general Dragon Ball analysis in the comments. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss them, and I'll see you next time.